seid. Versteht jemand nicht so gut Englisch und hätte gerne eine Übersetzung ins Deutsche? Ja, wäre gut, Übersetzung? Okay. Ja. Machen wir Übersetzung dort? So, der Shikshastakam Prabhu, der junge Herr im Orange, der würde übersetzen ins Deutsche. Ja? Mhm. So, most welcome everyone again, and we are very happy now after this beautiful bhajan. Thank you, bhajan. Now we'll have a philosophical discourse, discussion, a lecture, and we have a special guest with us today, His Grace Kripamoya Prabhu. Haribo, Hare Krishna. Please have a seat. Kripamoya Prabhu is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, which means that Prabhu has been practicing Krishna consciousness for almost 50 years, very senior and, and experienced devotee. He's also an initiating spiritual master, a Diksha Guru, serves and helps many devotees in their spiritual lives. Actually, Kripamoya Prabhu, originally from Wales, joined the movement quite early, I think in the age of 17, got in touch, and then later on joined the ashram as a full-time monk. And later, I was one of the pioneer preachers in the UK, and then later also served in Kenya, in Africa. Yes. Quite adventurous lifestyle. And then, of course, for the last couple of many decades, Kripamoya Prabhu served in the UK as a teacher, as a priest, also conducting different rituals, and also is an author of several books. Amazing kirtan, he also sings beautiful kirtan. And he's married to Guru Charan Padmamadachi, who is also here. And together they have 3 kids. And I think at least one of the kids you will most probably know. You know Janavi? The parents. The famous daughter. So, yeah, we are very happy and grateful to have the association. It's very wonderful to have you with us. So looking forward to you. And the topic will be on sustainable bhakti. That means how to become a devotee, how to remain a devotee, and how to practice this wonderful science of bhakti yoga. Right.
A long introduction.
It was very short, actually. We should have much more.
I'll come back next year. Hare Krishna, everyone. English is okay for everyone? Good, because I can't speak any other language. Sorry.
Maybe everyone can come a little closer.
Come a little closer.
No danger.
Yes, I'm a vegetarian. I won't bite. Some days I'm even a vegan. So, yes, the topic is, how do you say that in German?
Nachhaltige Bhakti.
Nachhaltig Bhakti. Very good. So it looks like many of you have got the clothing and the beads. So do I take it that you're either regular visitors here or you already know so many things? How many of you have been here at least 5 times before? Yeah, sort of everybody. Well, sustainable bhakti just means to how to keep going. That's it. Any questions? Although you may look at me now, I'm 67. You know, if you look at me now, you don't think this person used to be a runner. But I did. I used to be a runner. So I ran for my school, and then I ran for, I guess what you would call in Switzerland, your cantonment. We should learn some. In England, I've been picking up different ideas while I'm here. The cantonment idea is definitely a good democratic idea. It's like very, you know what I noticed in Switzerland? I noticed clean streets, orderly people, happy people, and nicely dressed people. Next time you come to London, I will show you. So Yes, I used to be a runner, and it used to be long distance races, not short, 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, but long, like 6 kilometers, 8 kilometers, 10 kilometers, like that. And I think one of the most important things for me at the time and for me now is the idea of just keeping going till you hit the finishing line. But what happens in between the start line and the finish line is that you start to feel, what do you say in German? Is the stitch. There's a build-up of acid in the system and you get a stitch. What's that called? Huh? Wiederschäfer? Reitenstefer? Reitenstecken. Yeah. So at that point, that's the first one, to get the Reitenstecken. Then there's another one that runners call hitting the wall. One is caused by one type of acid build-up in the system, which is quite natural. And the other one is called by build-up of lactic acid in the system, and that builds it up. And runners call that hitting the wall. So in a life of Krishna Bhakti, of course it is a spiritual thing, but we're doing the spiritual life with a material body. So sometimes different circumstances arrive, like, you know, we get tired, or we need an increase in our philosophical reasoning. Our intellectual faculty needs to focus on some particular aspect of spiritual life so that we will develop the Shraddha, the faith to continue. So when you're running, the faith to continue is the knowledge that you are actually in a race. There is actually a finish line, and the more you run, the more you'll reach the finish line. So what is the sense of reward for a devotee, a practitioner of bhakti? Because I've noticed that in the beginning it is very attractive. It's very. How many of you would say that when you first encountered Krishna Bhakti, you found that it was something very interesting, something that came in answer to a lot of questions that you had, and you were able to sort of just give me a little wave. That's very good. And I'm going to ask you to speak because. So, what was your experience? You can speak it. You speak in German.
So many, yeah.
Yeah. What was it? A feeling of relief, or was it a feeling? Yes. Let's have an interactive session because I've given 2 classes already today. Yeah. What's your name? Oh, she's going to speak, is it? You're volunteering her.
It looks like. I'm very shy.
You're very shy, okay.
Very shy.
I don't think so. So the question is, what did it feel like for you at the encountering Krishna Bhakti for the first time? Were you looking, or did it come accidentally, or was it something that you were studying for a long time?
It started just somehow, and many things came step by step, and it felt like everything. I was reading the Bhagavad Gita first,
yeah,
and I felt like everything I was reading was, oh wow, that's what I always thought, that it is like that. And then after reading Bhagavad Gita, I started to go to the temple, and then step by step everything happened automatically, and I felt just like home.
Thank you. What's your name?
Pavitra.
Pavitra, very nice. So, did anybody ever experience, maybe a few weeks after you encountered Krishna, that you read something that you didn't like? Pavitra has read many, many things that she did like. Did you encounter something that you did not like, that you thought, wow, I can't deal with this? Anybody? Yes, sir. We'll give you a microphone so your voice sounds bigger.
It's like I know Krishna since childhood, so grown up in India, though everyone knows Krishna there, and in different ways and different forms. But came to know Krishna consciousness in 2001, and then again here in 2024 in January.
Yeah.
And while reading, there was many things which came up, which brought me very clearer that certain things I have to change in my life. One thing was intoxication, and I like wine.
Okay.
So that is the biggest challenge which I am feeling.
Yeah. So no one told you about that at the beginning, or you just it came as a surprise to you?
Yeah, not surprise. It is like, yeah, these are the rules which one has to follow. So
okay.
And one of the rule, it is like when you like something, it is like the short-term flavors which you changes for the long-term gain.
Yes.
But to leave that short-term flavors or pleasure is a challenging thing for long-term eternity gain.
Yes, yes. That's very good. Hold on to that thought. That thought is very important. When we encounter Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, there are so many wonderful things and so many good ideas. This week I was speaking at the university here, and we were talking about reincarnation, and we were talking about consciousness, and we were talking about different things. And I know as soon as I encountered those ideas, I thought, this is quite revolutionary. This is everything I wanted to hear about. And then a few weeks later comes this idea, okay, well, if you want what's on offer, there may be some rules that you may be required to follow in order to become focused. So then that's one stage, and we hear from others, and we either agree to those ways of developing our spirituality. That's interesting. If you do yoga, you'll know about yama niyama. For every practice of yoga, for every destination you seek to achieve, there's a set of rules to follow. Like on the way here, I flew into Zurich, and the pilot at the very beginning said the one thing that I really don't like to hear any time in my life. This is the captain speaking. We're expecting a little turbulence just outside Zurich. You'll need to keep your seatbelts tight. I hate that. That's the one thing. You don't like wine? I don't like seatbelt tightening. But in order for me to get here, I had to follow the rules. And they're not my rules, because I wasn't flying the plane. I'm putting myself in someone else's vehicle. So a system of yoga is like getting into a vehicle. There are certain things that you do and certain things that you don't do. Like in a vehicle going at 90 kilometers an hour, you don't put your head out the window. It's just, things that you don't do. So perhaps we have, that's one stage, perhaps we have encountered that stage and moved on to the next stage, which is, I've been practicing Krishna consciousness now for 2 years, and I think that now I might want to become initiated, okay, something like that, or not. It's your choice. But I might want to become initiated, and that requires something which is a greater commitment. It's placing myself right now. I really am making a commitment. Because now I'm publicly promising that I will follow these rules, as we say in England, come hell or high water. Whatever the case, I will do this. How do you say commitment in German? Commitment. Huh? Obligation? Is it? How do you say? Commitment, when you make a firm resolution.
Abmachung, commit.
Okay, good. So then there may be some residual fear at that time. And we often find that this is the case in spiritual life, but we're going to come back to that. So then you make that commitment, and then we enter into a longer stage, which is like a long race. And then something may happen which may shake your understanding, or you may find that you have insufficient faith at a certain point, and you need strengthening from some source. That's another stage. Now, I have been practicing Krishna consciousness now for 50, well, coming up this summertime it will be 50 years. 50 years since someone gave me a set of beads and said, chant. I went, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I forgot the rest. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So that was 50 years ago. And the biggest thing I can say in my life is that spiritual life is always accompanied by a series of, the idea of a series of steps that we take. And it's very good to have the idea of following one step after the other. Just like in our beautiful garden here, we have a nice set of steps, and you can go from top to the bottom or bottom to the top very nicely by stepping one step over the other. Most things in yoga are a series of steps. It's good to know those steps to be aware what the next step for you is. But every single one of those steps, not these steps, but the yoga steps, is accompanied by some reservations, some fear. Spiritual life is, there's fear in it, because you're stepping into the unknown. You have to leave behind certain things, you know. And so that requires some courage. So to overcome the sense of fear of what I might lose, courage is required. So people in your life are very important at that time. Those people who can give encouragement. Courage is something that we need to overcome the fear of taking the next step in spiritual life. And encouragement is that which helps you to do that. And in a community of practitioners, we get courage from each other. See? Therefore, when you are practicing any type of spiritual life, it is good to practice it with others. In the early Christian communities in Egypt, they would practice long, long hours of meditation in the desert. They were wrestling with the what they called the 8 deadly thoughts. The 8 deadly thoughts, which later on one of the popes turned into the 7 deadly sins. And the one they missed, there was one that they missed out, but it's, you know, lust and greed and gluttony and sloth and different things. So they were wrestling with these thoughts. But in the morning and the evening, these monks, these meditators, these early Christians who practiced breath control and sitting postures and, you know, mantra recitation and reading of prayers from their books, very much the yoga lifestyle. But they would come together with other monks in the morning for just practical reasons and to encourage each other. And that is something that is very helpful in a community. So a temple like this one, where we come every week, is an opportunity to be encouraged. It's also an opportunity for, you could say, public worship or a public festive arti, singing, dancing, prasadam. But it takes more than that to sustain bhakti over a long period of time. To sustain bhakti over a long period of time, which is the subject of my talk, is really the presence in your life of an encourager. An encourager, someone who gives you courage to take the next step. Of course, with that person, and it can be a person of your choice, and it may change from month to month or year to year. But if you have such a person, then the technique is to be open and honest and truthful with them about where your consciousness is situated and what you are fearful of. Then hopefully, if they're a person who's progressed beyond your level, they'll be able to help you by giving you guidance, by saying things like, oh yes, I was in that situation once, and this is what I did. You have to try this technique, or you have to read this. This will help you. And there must be knowledge also. The idea of guru is a person who has knowledge. Guru is a Sanskrit word, of course, which means heavy. If we have, there's a very nice Sanskrit word called Guru Patela. Guru Patela is a honeybee who's flying home after visiting all the flowers. And he's collected the nectar from different flowers. And now his little legs are weighed down with the nectar. That's Guru, Guru Patela. But in this case it just means heavy bee. So a guru is a heavy bhakti bee. He's learned a lot. He's collected nectar from different places, and if you fly with him or her, you can extract that nectar, provided he's willing to share it. But guruship comes in different forms. Wherever there is a sharing of knowledge, that's the guru principle. That's the guru tattva. So guru comes in a variety of forms. And sometimes you'll find someone who says just the right thing that you needed to hear. Sometimes you'll come across a book that is just the right book for you, the right passage for you. I told the story earlier about a person who was deciding, and I saw the beautiful fish on the altar today. I thought that was very ingenious. At first I was looking at the fish and I said, "Oh, that's strange. We don't eat fish." But just because you don't eat them doesn't mean they're not nice. Fish are nice. They look nice. They're nice colors, and the Lord is decorated in a fishy outfit. You see how it's like fins, isn't it? And you see the blue is the water, and somebody's been very clever today, I think. And he says, where was I? What did I say? How did I get onto fish? From Guru Tattva to fish, how's that possible? I'm taking your consciousness and pulling you down. Steps, yoga. Come on, Narayani. What is it? Somebody remember for me, please. Yes, the different types of gurus we talked about, didn't we? Oh, I know. This is a story. Anyway, there's a young man who was coming to our satsanga in England's second city called Birmingham, big industrial town. And on the one hand, he liked satsang, he liked coming to the temple, he liked kirtan, he liked japa, and on the other hand, he liked fishing. Fishing. Catching fish. And he said that Hare Krishna's satsang makes me very peaceful. But fishing also makes me peaceful. I'm just sitting in the water. He said it's a form of meditation. I just sit there and meditate on the rod and becoming one with the water. And it was all very zen. So he was sitting there. And he struggled for a while, for a couple of months. And he was coming to the satsang, and then he thought to himself, Sunday's my fishing day, I have to go fishing. So he went fishing. And then after maybe an hour, a fish was on the end, and he pulled his line like this, just like that. Pulled it in like this. Caught a fish. So there he was just pulling it in. Big fish, heavy fish. And then he saw that it was actually a plastic bag. It's a plastic bag, that's all. Bit of rubbish. So he opened up the plastic bag. Inside the plastic bag he found a Bhagavad Gita. True story. God's Saint I swear on Saint Christopher. True story. So why? Because Indians in the area of Birmingham, they like to take sacred things that they don't want to dispose of in normal ways. They say that the Shastra requires you to put sacred things in the water So they do, but they wrap it in cloth and they wrap it in a plastic bag and then they put it in the water. So Bhagavad Gita. So he took this as a sign. He took this as a sign that somehow Krishna wanted him to continue on the path of bhakti. So sometimes it's nice when we get a sign like that, isn't it, Bhavaja? You get a sign like that and it's like, you go, ooh, Krishna's thinking of me. I'm trying to think of Krishna, but Krishna's also thinking of me. So this is another story from England. A person had the Bhagavad Gita. Stop me if you've heard this one before. He had the Bhagavad Gita, but many people have the Bhagavad Gita because we sell many Bhagavad Gitas. How many of you have sold the Bhagavad Gita to someone else? Loads of you. It's what we do. Okay, we are the Krishna's witnesses of the world. So we sell millions of Bhagavad Gitas, but surprise, surprise, not all of those people read. Sometimes they're on the shelf for many, many years, sometimes even wrapped in plastic still. Anyway, this person had a book, wasn't wrapped in plastic. He had a Bhagavad Gita for a couple of years. And then it was time for him to move house because of his job. And he moved 300 kilometers to the north, to a place called Leeds, another industrial town in the north of England. We have a lot of them. It's grim. And so what he did before, he had to sort out the things that he had in his life. And at this point in his life, he thought Bhagavad Gita, all these different books and some furniture and clothing, he got rid of them and gave them to a charity shop. A charity shop? Charity shop? Yeah? You understand? Oh, okay, sorry. The last class was Tamil, so I'm just asking. So then he moved 300 kilometers. After 6 months, he discovered that he had a bookcase with not many books. So he was thinking, I should get some books. So then he noticed down the road, about 10 houses down the road, a neighbor was moving and throwing out some books. So he went and had a rummage. What do you think he found? In the neighbor's rubbish. He found a Bhagavad Gita. But he brought that Bhagavad Gita home, put it on his shelf, still didn't read it. 2 weeks later, he took the book off the shelf, he opened it up. He saw his own name was written inside the Bhagavad Gita. It was his Bhagavad Gita. From 300 kilometers and 6 months, it had followed him all the way to... So he was like... He thought to himself, wow. He said, Krishna wants me on this path. Now, when it's very clear like that, you get a very clear message, isn't it? But sometimes you don't get a clear message, do you? You're not quite sure. I could have been a Buddhist. I could have been a Buddhist monk. I would have been a very bad Buddhist monk, but I was interested in Buddhism before. My friend was interested in Buddhism. He was one of my teachers in Krishna consciousness. Some devotees are, simple people, and some devotees are, graduates from university. So I was thinking, he's interesting because he had a university qualification. He was, what was he, Bachelor of Science, and then he turned to Buddhism. So I used to listen to him. So he told me his story. And his story was that he went all the way to Japan to study Buddhism. Very serious person. And he went by train from London through France and Germany and around Switzerland and then across to Russia, China, Japan. Very, he thought that was spiritual. He could have flown in an airplane, but he didn't think that was very spiritual. So he went by train. Took him weeks. So he got there, and for 18 months he was involved in meditation. 6 months. 6 months for each school of Buddhism that he found. One monastery, another monastery, another monastery. So at the end of the 18-month period, he was still frustrated. He still said, I'm not getting anywhere with my meditation. So he came back to England And one night, he was in an apartment all by himself, and the sky was very dark, the stars were shining, and he got down on his knees, which you shouldn't do as a Buddhist, and you shouldn't say the following words. He put his hands like this. He said, dear God, he said, you know I don't believe in you. It's like me saying, Katerina, you know you're a non-person, but still, let's talk. You would think, well, that's very nice. That's very nice. I'm a non-person. Thank you very much. They said, dear God, you know I don't believe in you, but if you do exist, can you show me a sign? Now that's it's preposterous, isn't it? What sort of theological, philosophical statement is that? I don't believe in that you exist, but if you do, let me know. So the following day he was on Oxford Street in London, and he saw 3 Buddhist monks dressed in orange robes. And he thought they were a little bit strange because they had a little piece of hair at the back. So he followed them. He said, do you know where there's a Buddhist temple? They said, well, you can come to our temple. Sure. And of course the rest of now he's a sannyasi and he travels the world preaching. The point is that sometimes we need a sign and we get a sign, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's not mystical. So in our life, when the enthusiasm and the novelty wears off, we have to be prepared to rely on more than signs and wonders. And it's that just, well, in yoga we call it, is it abhyas? Abhyas, just the general practice, regular practice. Just day after day, doing something day after day. And it may feel rewarding and it may not feel rewarding, but you keep doing it day after day, and it's accumulative. It's like Prabhupada said, when you're in an airplane, you don't really feel that you've got very high at all until you look out the window. After a few minutes you look out the window, and then you realize, we're above the clouds. How did we get here? Because you were climbing all the time, but you didn't realize. You were moving up, up, up. So in spiritual life, sometimes there's nothing really to compare things to, so you don't know how fast you're climbing. It's important, therefore, to have a person who examines your progress. And this is one of the functions of Guru, to examine your progress and to give you feedback. So you have an encourager, you have a source of knowledge, you have a person who can tell you how you're doing on the different steps. It's important also to calibrate those steps so that you know where you are yourself. And for this you need something called introspection. German word? Oh, that's just cheating. I say an English word and you say it in a German way. Introspection, and spell it with a K. I know how this works, okay. So you need introspection. Introspection is where you look within yourself. And to do this, you need a quiet place. You need some quiet time. The difficulty is when you're a householder, or when you're a student, or basically when you're doing anything, it requires you to be busy all the time. So we need to take time off to be in a quiet place, to think, to hear yourself think. Very important. So what are the questions you're asking yourself? You're asking yourself, how am I doing really? And this requires you to be painfully honest. This is a terrible thing, actually, to see yourself in truth. There's 2 ways that you can do it. Three ways that you can do it. Either you can just reflect, introspect, reflect, and make a resolution to continue, or you can write it down That's hard. I know one devotee, he told me he did a lot of introspection because something was troubling him in his spiritual life. And it was something that had happened in the past. And these things that happened in the past, either childhood or even last life, even in the life before this one, they can come into this life and give you fear or phobia or trauma or painful recollections. Prabhupada said it's like, being a meditator is like sitting on the bank of a lake, and he said you're trying to meditate on a piece of gold that is at the bottom of the lake. He said, but two things happen. One is that the wind comes and ripples the water so that you can't quite see where the gold is. Another is that gas bubbles come from the bottom of the lake where all the leaves are rotting, and they go plop, 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 and they come up to the surface and they break the surface and also ripple the surface. So Prabhupada said the wind ripples are things that happen in this life, and the bubbles of gas are coming up from the past life. But both have the same effect. They're causing disturbance. And it may be that they cause a disturbance at a different point in your life. This is your life. This is the bit where, over here, this is easy Krishna consciousness. Bhakti, yes, wonderful. Woohoo! Everything's fine. I like the philosophy, I like the practice. Devotees are so nice. Over here, this is a bit where your last life catches up, right here. Okay, right there. That's where something nasty happens. And it happens because of this. So it happens, boom, splash, And then you suddenly wonder, why do I not like Krishna consciousness anymore? Why is it so boring? Why am I not a devotee? Is it me, or is it must be them, can't be me. Because I'm a good person. So these issues, they cloud things. So there you need introspection. One thing you can do with writing things down, or two things you can do. You can either write it down on a piece of paper and then just burn it. That helps with the idea that I'm burning the thing that I'm most afraid of. Or you can journal it and you can take it to a third person. But that's very brave. Most of us are not that brave. Because confidentiality, we want to be able to trust someone so much that we trust them with our secrets. They won't go to someone else and say, hey, you know what I heard? He told me, this was in his journal, I read his journal, and you know what? X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, Z. So you have to have a person that you really trust, which can be difficult. So writing it down, though, solidifies and concentrates your thoughts, and so that you can look at it and you can sleep on it. Put it under your pillow, just go to sleep. Wake up in the morning, you think, oh, that was a real thought that troubled me yesterday, but today it's not so bad. I've had time to think on it. So all of those things. So our life is really it's sort of like there is a spiritual world, and the whole of the spiritual world is trying to get through and illuminate this life. But in this life we are attached to many different things. And I don't mean, chocolate and cream buns and wine and different things. These are solid objects. It's not so much that. It's the subtle things. It's the subtle things. Random fears. So we've talked about good friends. We've talked about, yes, surrounding yourself with a circle of friends. So you have your guru, you have your mentor, which is also like a guru. In Britain, we followed the counselor system of Bombay that Radhanath Swami set up. So we also have now about 700 devotees that are sort of in this system, that we've arranged for them to be part of a small group. It really does seem as if being part of a small group is a dynamic way to deal with many, many issues that come up in spiritual life. So you can change the group that you belong to. You can change the person who's your main, teacher. It's very fluid, but it always helps to be in one, and then it also helps to be the leader of one. Because believe it or not, even with the difficulties that you periodically have, the actual giving of Krishna conscious wisdom to others actually helps to clear your own turbulence. It's very good. Because you have to put things into thoughts, and you have to be encouraging for others. One of the most powerful spiritual exercises you can do is practice gratitude on a daily basis, and especially if you related it to your path of Krishna consciousness. I'm grateful for, and then just list the things that you're grateful for in your spiritual life. And suddenly you find the weight is lifting off your shoulders. You find yourself all right. So why don't we have a couple of questions? Now that I've told you a few secrets.
Why do you burn the paper when you write it? I'm just curious.
Well, especially if you write something that you're trying to forget. The act of burning it suggests that you're destroying it. It's a sort of a mental, physical link to something that you're trying to get rid of. Just like we do it in a fire yagya. When you have a fire yagya, you if you want to make the place clean, you take a little speck of dirt and you go Om Nirastu Paravasu, and you throw it to the northeast. And the idea is I'm making this clean before I begin my sacrifice. So the idea of taking something unwanted, it's called expelling the unwanted impurities. So the mental exercise of expelling those things that you do not want by concretizing, physicalizing them in the form of So a thought is a thought, but until you write it down, and when you write it down, this is what it is. You're sort of confronting your mind with what was in your mind. And then you're saying, this I don't need. You can take it, and it's just a technique. You won't find it written about in any Acharya's book. But it helps. Different devotees have told me that it helps. It also helps just talking to others. There was a very nice series of talks given by Rabindra Swarup Prabhu called The Cure of Souls, in which he analyzes how we deal with different problems. And he says that people in the mode of sattva guna, or mode of goodness, tend to, when they come across these problems, they tend to try to solve them by discussion with those who either had those problems and have moved beyond them, or those who can suggest possible solutions. A philosophical approach, practical spiritual approach. Those who are in the mode of passion tend to find company with those who also got the same problem, and they tend to take shelter of some form of gratification. So we take up some form of gratification to blunt out the unhelpful thoughts. And then others, in the mode of ignorance, they tend to blame others for their problems. That's an easy one to do, to blame others for the problem that you have. You ever done that? It's easy, isn't it? It's the easy thing to do. It's not me, because it's not me, you see. My problems are not due to me. It's due to them. It's due to him, due to her. They made me the way I am. Yes. So they may have been instrumental in the karmic tangle that has come your way. But to fix it on one person means that you'll never really be able to deal with the problem. The other thing, of course, is daily practice, which we talked about, abhyas. But the holy name of Krishna is really the central practice that we have. We don't really have much else. Everything else is a sort of packing of everything that we do, isn't it? The name of Krishna. Done every day, consistently. And I remember something that Hridayananda Maharaj said when he was counseling his householders. He said, householders have to struggle for two things. Going to bed early, even if they have children, which is really hard. Second hardest thing, getting up in the morning, even if you had a late night. That's a real struggle. But if you can do that, then you give yourself time to do the japa that you already committed to. And it's a difficult thing because, you know, we promise to chant a certain number of rounds and then we go for some time and then we may not do that. And then faced with the fact that there's no lightning bolt that comes from the sky, we're not killed because we don't chant a certain number of rounds. Have you noticed? We're not smashed down, and we're still nice people. So at that point, the logical reason may be, well, I can be a nice person without chanting so much japa. But that's not, you didn't begin chanting japa just to be a nice person. Sometimes people come to me and they say, Kripamoya. I say, oh dear, what? They said, I've been chanting for 15 years and I'm still upset because of my childhood trauma. I think I need to go to a therapist. And as soon as the devotee goes to the therapist says, tell me about your day. Well, I wake up in the morning and I just feel angry. Then I do meditation. Does it work? No, I'm still angry at my childhood. I'm angry at my father. Okay. Well, let's see what it's like if you stop chanting altogether. First thing a therapist says is put your bead bag away. And then I think you'll find that you've started chanting in order to deal with a difficult childhood. If we deal with a difficult childhood, you may not want to chant. So the logic is that the only reason I was doing Krishna Bhakti is to deal with the difficulties of a difficult childhood. No. There may be different reasons that we are attracted to Krishna Bhakti, but ultimately, the soul, not your mind, the soul is attracted to Krishna. That's it. That's the simple reason. The soul is attracted to Krishna. Yeah, sorry, you were going to... He's been hogging the microphone all the time. So long as run out of batteries. Which is sort of a metaphor for spiritual life, isn't it? Always replace the batteries. Give yourself enough energy. And we should also talk about physical health as well. Physical health. If you're not physically healthy, it feels as if you have no devotion. It feels as if your spiritual life is weak. But it's not. We have many devotees who are physically ill, and not many devotees, but they become physically ill and they think, I just need to chant more. No, you need to go and see a doctor. Okay, I'm just upset because I'm too attached. No, you just need a life partner. Or I'm just so attached to the material world. No, you need to get a job. You actually need money. Oh, but I've taken on this, I need to be in poverty because that brings me closer to Krishna. No, that's not a very good idea. You know, you need to pay your medical insurance. And, you know, so there are things, on the material side of things, there are things that need to be in place. You need to be healthy, happy, free from depression, financially solvent. You have to have friends, career prospects, a vehicle, somewhere to live. All these things need to be there. Of course, you can practice Krishna consciousness with nothing. We're saying that, but that may not be you, and that may not be your life. Sorry.
All good. Thank you for your all wise words. You mentioned, I don't remember the exact words, but something along the lines of, in mode of goodness, we get advice from people that have overcome this, so they can advise you speaking that it's true what they're saying. And then in a mode of passion, it's just two people kind of talking about the issue or complaining.
Yeah.
And I realized that when I am talking in the mode of passion with someone, I mean, maybe sometimes it's also a mix of passion and goodness, complaining to each other, trying to find solutions with each other. But if I talk, for example, to my dad and it's in mode of goodness, I feel like I don't understand, even though I try to, because I don't have the mode of passion with him where I feel understood, because he's not complaining with me, but he's above that. So my question basically is, what is your advice, how to just be in mode of goodness, get this advice and not always have this need to complain or moan about things, or yeah. And
yeah, actually, it's a form of sense gratification, isn't it? I mean, we all do it, but it's a form of sense gratification, self-justification, complaining. It feels good, doesn't it? You're getting something out of your system by complaining, but you're not curing the problem, you're just complaining. So complaints, they have to be, you have to, things that you may, it seems strange, but you may enjoy having a negative emotion, you may enjoy complaining, because it feels like you're expressing it and getting it out. But unless you solve it, it can be problematic. What I meant by mode of passion is sometimes what happens is that sometimes people like to be in the company of those who've got the same. For instance, you've got a bad habit, you've isolated, you know that you have a bad habit. When this happens, I tend to do this. And then you meet with another person and they say, oh yeah, I've got that bad habit too. So then what do you do with each other? Well, it's not so bad, is it? You talk to each other as if, well, you've got that bad habit, and I know that she's got that bad habit too. Why don't we all get together and have that bad habit? Because it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Better to be with a person who doesn't have that bad habit, who can say, yes, that is a bad habit, I had it too, and this is how I moved on. Very important. I'm not suggesting that you have bad habits, I'm just saying, So, most of the Srimad Bhagavatam, particularly the speeches of the Navyogendras in the 11th canto to King Nimi, they talk about the importance of the Vaishnava, the importance of the company of those who are spiritually strong. Now, one problem that we have isolated, of course, is that in this particular point in history, there may not be that many Vaishnavas sufficient that we can find them in our part of Switzerland, let's say. Well, a person wrote to me and he said, Kripamoya, I moved from London to Exeter, it's a farming community, and there's just nobody here. I read that we're supposed to have devotee company, but there's nobody here. I said, are you sure? He said, yep, I've checked. There's nothing going on, no branch of Hare Krishna down here. So I said, let me look in my address list. I looked at my address list. I sent him the address of a person that wanted to be contacted if there was anybody else there. And he wrote back to me, he said, well, this person is just around the corner, less than half a kilometre from me. And he went there and he knocked on the door. And as he opened the door, it was a devotee came to the door. And he said, but I didn't know you were here. He said, I didn't know you were here. How's that possible? He said, because every day I've walked past, because they both had neck beads on, but when they went to work, they covered the neck beads up with their shirt. So they'd walk past each other in the street, not even knowing that they were devotees. So there are hidden devotees everywhere. Every town, every village. The difficulty is, you have to go and find them. Sorry. The good news is they're there. The bad news is you have to go and find them. How many of you have come from more than 20 kilometers away today? Good Lord. 30 kilometers? Wow. You are really... This is the real devotion here. 50 kilometers? Wow. Where have you come from?
Me and my husband have come from New Zealand.
No.
But not just today.
We just flew in today.
Just to make Sunday.
We're going home we're going home tonight. You win. That's fabulous, isn't it? Fabulous. We reckon that the average that people will journey to meet another devotee is something like 20 kilometers, something like that. You know, after then you have to be a sort of missionary person to do it. Yeah. But there's always devotees everywhere, or people who are like devotees who could become devotees. Imagine yourself, you know, yeah. When I was 15, my father was he was selling office equipment for, you know, photocopying, and but there was another type of thing called a spirit duplicator, and if you cranked the handle and you made an original, it would crank out copies. You could make 500 copies like that. It was in purple ink, early 70s. And anyway, my friends at school had a band, and they wanted to put on a show, and it was going to be called the Ananta Disco. I said, "What's Ananta?" And they went, "It's a snake, somewhere in the universe." I said, "Okay." So I made the Ananta Disco flyers from them. I drew it out. I printed out 200 copies, did the show. And then later, the same month, devotees came to my town, distributing the Back to Godhead magazine. On the front of that magazine was Ananta. Now I knew what Ananta was, and I thought, ooh, something's happening. So in my life, I've been lucky enough that from time to time, I've had experiences that you could only call really mystical, that have helped me to get to the next stage. But I haven't depended on those, because sometimes they don't come at the right time. So the other techniques that you use, introspection, good friends, what else did I say? Huh? Introspection, good friends, mentor, huh?
Daily practice.
Oh yes, daily practice. Yeah, we forgot about that one. We were working on that one. And good health, yes, very important. Sometimes even the best yoga practitioners become depressed, and sometimes it's difficult to separate depression from just spiritual, what's it called? One of the 8 deadly thoughts that the early monks were struggling with was called asidya. And asidya means a type of depression that comes after not reaching God as much as you thought you should. This is asidya. And it afflicts monks. And it shows up in monks a lot because they've got nothing else to depend on. If you're a householder, you know, you can sort of fall back into a more lazy approach to spiritual life. You know, you've got your partner, you've got your house, you've got your job, you've got your money, you've got your different enjoyments. But monks, they tend to struggle more than others, so this asidya can affect them. Or it becomes more pronounced, it becomes more noticeable. But with us in general, for a general practitioner, it comes and we feel a sort of listlessness, type of apathy, you know. I used to chant a lot, I used to read a lot, I used to love kirtan. Now I'm just apathia, There's acedia and apatheia. It's because, you know, we reach. So sometimes it's because we haven't been taking the medicine. We haven't been taking the medicine. You need to take the medicine. The medicine is contact with the holy name of Krishna. One verse that we've been meditating on is from the Padma Purana. And in the Padma Purana, it says that those people who chant the name of Narayan, the Supreme Person, should know that he comes into their presence as soon as they begin chanting. So it's all in the name of Krishna. And sometimes you may rationally try to understand that the name of Krishna is, well, it's just air. I'm just making a sound in air. It's just my voice. I'm listening to the sound of my own voice. Maybe this is a crazy thing. I've heard that Krishna devotees sometimes do crazy things. Maybe they go crazy because of too much chanting. You know. I think I'll go and see my therapist. Yep, that's true, they told me. Sometimes we have therapists that devotees have gone to and they've said, well, you have to take all the pictures of Krishna in your house and rip them up. It's not helping you. If it's not helping you, you have to clear the deck. We have to see whether it was Krishna consciousness is the problem or the solution. Interesting. But sometimes the mind works as a therapist as well. Says, actually, no, it was good, we compartmentalize something historically. I've had periods where I've thought to myself, especially when you hit 40. When you hit 40, you think, well, Krishna consciousness was something I did when I was 17. 17, I did it when I was 17. I'm 40 now. I'm a completely different person. Even Prabhupada says, every 7 years, everything about us changes. I'm a completely different person. Maybe I needed Krishna Bhakti back then, and I don't need Krishna Bhakti now. You ever thought like that? Come on. Wait till you're 40. Yeah. So, compartmentalizing it historically means that you've sort of fallen below the spiritual platform onto the sort of timeline of the mind. Because the mind compartmentalizes things, you know. The mind gives you good reasons not to chant. The mind says, you're a little bit older now, you're happier now. You know, you were really looking for something at that age. You're not looking for anything now, you know. And really, it hasn't really produced the results that it used to produce when you were new to it. So just set it to the side. And the intellect comes in and says, no, I can't give it up because, you know, I know it's the right thing to do. So I want to give it up, but I know it's the right thing to do. That's when you chant 2 rounds every day, where you used to chant a lot more. Nothing wrong with chanting 2 rounds if you didn't do anything yesterday, by the way. And one thing is very, very important, is not to chant more rounds than you can comfortably achieve. We have many people, if our initiated devotees are like this, devotees who chant 8 rounds a day without fail are like this, 4 rounds a day are like this, 2 rounds a day are like this. You know, so we have a pyramid of japa chanters. And everybody feels they're in the right place. They're in the right place. So sometimes it is the case that you have to look and see what you can do. Anyway, but daily practice, which means creating a space in your life so that you can do that practice. We all have, in Switzerland, how many hours do you have in the day? 24. It's so much like England. 24 hours in the day. Okay. So 24 hours in the day means you have to be very careful. You know, okay, I've got 2 hours of Netflix. I must do that. That's my daily practice. 2 hours Netflix, I have to have that. Then, if you really look at your life, unfortunately, there's not much time for spiritual life. Not really. Imagine, you know, you spend a third of that 24 hours, 8 hours, sleeping, if you're lucky. 3 hours, and then you spend another couple of hours eating. Then you spend another couple of hours shopping so that you can eat. Then you work, that's at least 8 hours. But now I don't know what it's like over here, but in London, if you have an 8-hour job, you have to do 12 hours to keep your 8-hour job. So people complain, I have to do 12 hours. So 8 hours is the hours that you get paid for. 4 extra hours is the hours that you do so that you can keep the job. Isn't it? So that's, how many hours is that? I've got my 12 hours on my work, 2 hours eating, 8 hours sleeping. There's not a lot of time left for spiritual life. Somehow we have to do the shaving. And of course, shaving is another thing that you have to do occasionally. What else? Then we have to keep healthy, because the man at the Krishna temple said you have to keep healthy. So we have to do some physical exercise. Then Krishna Prema Rupa tells us we have to read Prabhupada's books. So we have to do that too. Therefore, many devotees have developed what they call a micro program, a micro morning program, a save myself morning program. And the idea is never to give up, never to give up. It's interesting the changes that take place, particularly for women in our Krishna consciousness, because men don't have the same problems, but women, when they get married and they have children, first child, second child, third child, it's very easy to see that there's extra special pressure because they're expected to be a practitioner, a mother, a worker, a house manager. There's so much pressure. So, but all of that will come out in your weekly or monthly discussion with your group, your circle of friends, and with your mentor. Personally, I function as a teacher or a mentor to different people, and we have every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Monday I do a meeting with people. We get 30, 40 people at that meeting. It's all online. And then one-to-one is 2 on Tuesday, 2 on Thursday. So my life is filled up. And then on Sunday, we have another 25. So there's a lot of meeting with people, and it's regular, and they come regularly. So regularity on a daily basis, regularity of meetings between devotees. And we find that those devotees do very well and are able to sustain their bhakti when they have all these components in place. So I tell everybody,